Hello, good evening, and welcome. This is Pastor Lane Nelson of Eastside Lutheran Church. It is another beautiful Tuesday night. I cannot tell you, I think the nights on Tuesdays have been so nice because that's the night that we get to spend time together here online. So, welcome to all of you who are taking a break from the beautiful Tuesday night, walking your dogs, or whatever it is that you might find yourselves doing on this night, and are spending a little bit of time with me once again. And I've got a special treat for you. Tonight we have something that we have not done before, and that is tonight's Together in Faith. Meet Pastor Joel Pakan. Yes, you can applaud for that. Any of you who are out there, if there is anybody watching, please give a quick hello in the comments. It'd be nice to know that you are out there. You can hit some likes. That'd be another way that we can see that you are there. We are trying a brand new experiment, and that is trying to figure out this split screen mode of Facebook Live using some technology that is new to me. So hopefully this works. Hopefully you have a chance to see this and it is working where you are at. Otherwise, I'm just talking a whole lot and no one's paying any attention. So
I'm seeing a few. I have this other feed open on the desktop computer. Looks like we got about 20 views. Can you see that, Pastor
you know,
Lane?
on my little end, I cannot. So I don't get that perspective here through the switcher program.
All right. Okay. Yeah. So there, I can kind of monitor the questions. There's some people
Oh,
saying hello and all that.
yeah,
So
awesome. That is wonderful. We are going to have a chance tonight to have a conversation with Pastor Joel Pakan. But before we get into all of that, we have had a chance throughout these last number of weeks and months now, I suppose, in this Together in Faith series, to be thinking about who we are as a people of God, what that means in our daily lives. We spent 6 weeks looking at Luther's Small Catechism when we kicked this off, and then we have spent several months looking at other faiths. We have looked at various Christian denominations, we have looked at other world religions. The point in all of it is to learn about others so that we can grow deeper in our own faith and figure out why do we believe what we believe. Um, so those are some things that are driving these Tuesday night conversations. Now, we have had a big holiday in the church. I'm sure you are all aware, and that, of course, was Christmas. And we are winding down through the end of that season. In fact, we have another significant church holiday coming up tomorrow, and that is Epiphany. Epiphany is a wonderful word. Perhaps you have found yourself using it. You were studying something and trying to figure things out, and all of a sudden it all made sense. You went, oh, I've had an epiphany. Well, that's not dissimilar to the celebration of Epiphany in the church. Epiphany falls every year on January 6th. It is the 12th day of Christmas, so it wraps up that Christmas season for us. And on a practical note, that is also the day in which people take down their Christmas decorations. So if you are stressed out every year wondering, when do I take down the tree? Is the day after Christmas too early? Is Valentine's Day too late? A general rule of thumb for most people is the season of Christmas ends with Epiphany, and we celebrate all of that. And that's also the day we then transition into other theological concepts in the year of the church, in our liturgical year. But I am not opposed to leaving Christmas trees up a long time. In fact, in my house, Jennifer, my wife, and I, we have this battle is too strong a word, kind of, about how long does Lane get to keep the Christmas tree up? Where I would love to just strip it down to white lights and then leave it up as a seasonal tree, and we could put a heart on it at Valentine's Day, and we could put a flag on it on the 4th of July, or what have you. But it comes down on the 6th of January, and it helps ground me in my faith somehow. But at the core, this season of Epiphany is so much more than Christmas decorations. It's so much more than ending that season. It's about identity, and it's about Jesus's identity. And this is the day when we ask that question, who is this
Hmm.
baby born in Bethlehem, and what difference will he make in our lives? Why does all of this stuff matter? And we have the vision of, traditionally on the 6th of January, we celebrate the Magi coming and making their way to find the baby Jesus. And the Mary and Joseph going, wow, look at these people who have traveled such great distances. What's going on with this child lying here, and what difference will he make? Which is an important question for each of us to ask, just kind of on a day to day basis of our faith. What difference does Jesus make in our lives, and who is he? Who is he to me, and who is he to my neighbor? And in this series, we can also ask that question then, who is Jesus even to people of other faiths? What difference does he make for them? Because Jesus certainly is a figure who is important on the world stage, especially obviously for Christians, but for others as well. But with this theme of identity surrounding us tomorrow with Epiphany, we also have the privilege of asking the question, who is this guy? And that is, of course, the person next to me on the split screen. This is the very first week that Pastor Joel Pakan is joining Eastside Lutheran Church. We have been a year just waiting for his arrival. Somehow God's Holy Spirit has been working and blowing and moving its way through our congregation. And it has led us to the point when Joel started here at the first of the year. Some of you probably got to see his worship leadership on Sunday. And so we are so glad now to be able to have a little bit more informal of a chance to have a conversation and just find out a little bit more about who he is. And so it is my great pleasure to introduce to you Pastor Joel Pakan. So you can applaud in the comments and in the what have you, as we are very happy. And so I'm going to turn it to you just to kind of say hi and a word or two about who you are.
Sure. Thanks, Pastor Lane. Well, like Pastor Lane said, my name is Joel, and my wife Amy and I arrived in town actually on the 1st, driving from Denver, Colorado, where that was where our internship sites were. Amy is also a pastor. We both went to seminary together at the same time, and she'll be starting at the Brandon Split Rock congregations in a couple weeks. So we drove out, caravanned out here, and got here into town on the 1st. But as you can see from the empty shelves behind me, most of our stuff has not arrived. It's actually on a moving truck, and that moving truck took the long route. The long route being Denver to Phoenix, Phoenix to Las Vegas, Las Vegas to Utah, and now Utah to South Dakota. So it's going to arrive on Thursday.
It will
And
come with one of those suitcases with like little stickers all over it saying
right, yeah,
went.
yeah, yeah, pretty much. So, yeah. But we're really, really glad to be here, and looking forward to all that this new year is bringing. Yeah. So that's kind of, I guess, a little bit of an intro. I don't know, Pastor Lane, what
Yeah.
else are you looking for?
Well, I tell you what, why don't I just ask a couple of questions and you can kind of speak to those.
Okay.
But if anybody else has any questions that you are just really curious about, feel free to put those down in the comments. I think I did find a way to see some of them that come through. I'm
Oh,
not going
good.
to guarantee I get them all, so I'll keep an eye on that too. But please feel free to ask Joel a question. But why don't we start with this one? Where'd you grow up? Where are you from? What's your background?
Sure. Yeah. Actually, it's an appropriate story because the congregation that I grew up in Eau Claire, Wisconsin, was named Epiphany Lutheran Church.
No way.
Yeah, right. Yeah, and so was baptized there and went to grade school at the Epiphany Lutheran School in Eau Claire, Wisconsin. and confirmed there as well. And that church no longer exists. They no longer worship as a separate community, but that was where I grew up, Eau Claire, Wisconsin. Well, Eau Claire is the big city
Sure.
in
Yeah.
northwestern Wisconsin, but I actually grew up in a small town outside of Eau Claire, Altoona, Wisconsin, which at the time was about 4,000 people. I think it's about 6 or 7,000 now, and it's a kind of a bedroom community for the Eau Claire Chippewa Valley area. So yeah, that's where I grew up. And went to college in St. Paul, Minnesota, and have lived a number of places all around the states in the years since college. But most recently was living in Minneapolis before going to seminary in Philadelphia, and then doing internship here in the Denver area. So,
Oh, yeah. Well, you
yeah.
too, I bet, have a suitcase with all kinds of stickers on it.
Oh yeah, yeah, yep, yeah. There was uh, I used to put stickers on lots of other instruments from all the travels that I've done, but more lately the stickers have been going on Amy's drum cases. Amy is a percussionist and drummer, and so the guitar cases are relatively sticker free, but Amy's drum cases are pretty
Sure.
packed with stickers. Yeah.
I bet they are. Well, why don't you say just a little bit about that? That's kind of a lead into what you were doing before you went to seminary.
Yeah, yeah. So for the last 20 years, Amy and I have been a traveling musical duo, and we have gone by the name Tangled Blue, and have produced a number of albums together, and also done some partnering with lots of organizations, including Lutherans Outdoors of South Dakota, and made a living in this world as musicians. And it has been a lovely journey doing that for the last 20 years. And in some ways, really led into this next trip, which has been seminary and now going into congregational ministry. Um, when I started doing music, even before Amy and I even started dating, it was a lot of youth gatherings and other type events in different places around the country, and that continued when Amy and I were married and started Tangled Blue.
Okay.
And then as we continued that work, we just started doing more and more work with congregations. So it wasn't so much the big youth gatherings as it was going to the same congregations once or twice a year and having these ongoing relationships that were kind of growing year after year after year.
Well, maybe your answer that.
Oh,
Um,
are you still there?
yeah, I can hear you. Starting to answer that question of why did you become a pastor? I'm going to just put you up for a second, and I'm going to try and figure this split screen again. All of a sudden, we just vanished. So,
So it's just chopping up a little bit back and forth on me. I'm just going to ask of the chat on Facebook, can you still hear me, folks in the chat? Give me a thumbs up if you can, because it looks like it might have stalled out on Facebook. We can see you one at a time. I
all
see
right.
Carrie Lynn saying that was a
All right.
minute ago. Um, and
How's that?
oh, oh, look at that. Okay, I'm seeing
It's a
some
little different
lights now.
than we were
We can
before,
hear.
but oh my gosh, now you get Howie in the background. Howie, my pelican.
Okay, all right. Well, there. People are saying they can hear it. So yeah. So congregational ministry has really been a part of this musical ministry, Tango Blue, and it just became more and more so over the years. Um, so much so that it got to the point where Amy and I were talking about it, that those 20 years of Tangle Blue has really been ministry that has been very broad, but by necessity of its broadness, also somewhat shallow, because we were in a community once or twice a year. And we would see those people on these kind of high events, and they were great ongoing relationships. But that just doesn't allow for the depth that congregational ministry allows for. And so that led us into thinking about seminary. And music played a role in seminary in that we were musicians in residence for our seminary years out in Philadelphia. And that is leading into this new chapter of congregational ministry. And so we're really looking forward to this ministry now that's going to be a ministry of depth, which not better or in any way than the ministry of breadth, but just different, and really looking forward to that experience here at Eastside. So thanks.
Well, that kind of takes us, that's a wonderful path, which then culminates in the why Sioux Falls, and then specifically why East Side of all the places that you could have landed. What puts you at the desk you're sitting
Sure. Jesus.
at? Yeah, great answer.
Yeah, man. Maybe folks who are listening in aren't as maybe familiar with the whole process for new pastors, but we get assigned to a synod, and so we were so glad to hear from Bishop Hagemeyer that we were assigned to the South Dakota Synod. And so that first step happened for us back in October. And then once we're assigned to a synod, once a new pastoral candidate is assigned to a synod, then those pastors work with the bishop and the bishop's office to have congregations for interviewing. And it works a little different in every synod. And some of our friends from seminary are already in their first calls, and others are still waiting and still interviewing. And so we're kind of right in the middle of the pack. But the South Dakota Synod was really great about connecting us with congregations. And so the very first congregation that I chose to interview with was Eastside. Eastside is very much my first choice of
Cool.
the congregations that the synod put forward, and so I'm really looking forward to this partnership and this work together. Yeah,
That's wonderful. Well, we are very excited to have you in our midst and going into these days of discovering who you are and how God will be working through you to bless the ministry that takes place at Eastside, and then how to help better equip all of us to do the work of the church.
cool.
Well, why don't you tell us just a little bit about your family?
Sure. Well, so Amy and I have been married for almost 20 years and have a lovely extended family that is, well, just kind of all over the map. I on some level, I was really identifying with the podcast that the South Dakota Synod put out, that Amy and I were a part of, this Reluctant Hope podcast. The last episode, episode 4, with Eileen Briggs, and she talked about kind of having kids all over, people that she's brought up with and been a parent or an auntie or to, and certainly Amy and I feel that way about a lot of the people that we've worked with and met over the years. But then specifically, I have 3 siblings and a number of nieces and nephews. Amy has a sibling and a number of nephews. And our family is kind of spread out in various places, but a lot of them are in the Twin Cities. Both my parents and both Amy's folks live in the Twin Cities, and we have extended cousins and everything in the Twin Cities. But then we have godkids who are kind of spread out all across the country. Wyoming, South Dakota, Minnesota, Chicago, yeah, all over. So.
Sounds like you have lots of baptismal birthday cards to write.
Yeah. The big one for us is Advent calendars that goes out to a number of the godkids. So we have godkids that are kind of in 2 different age groups. Our godsons are older and now graduated from college, and our goddaughters are all younger. So we have this kind of span that wasn't intentional, but that's just how it happened. Yeah.
Yeah. Speaking of godchildren, my daughter Madeline's baptismal birthday is tomorrow. It just happened to be Epiphany was a Sunday that year when
Uh,
she was being baptized. So it's the baptismal birthday that I can remember because of the
mhm.
holiday, you know.
Yeah. Cool.
Well, when you are not working and when you are not traveling, what do you do for fun? What is it that puts a smile on your face?
Yeah, Amy and I have really enjoyed going on hikes over the years. We try and do about a 3 mile or more walk every day, and have enjoyed that these first couple days
Can
around.
people give you dogs to take with you?
uh, maybe.
You could have a whole side career here in town with a
Yeah.
flock of dogs following you everywhere you
Uh,
go.
yeah. The thing is we really love animals and grew up with animals. But Amy is also allergic. And
Ah,
so, especially when your life is around your voice, and Amy is a singer, we
mm-hmm.
have tended to keep a distance just because that gets a little bit
Sure.
of a challenge. But we love animals. So we'll
Well, aside
gladly,
walking without animals, what else do you do for fun?
yeah. Um, I would say, I haven't engaged in it as much over these last couple of years, but visual art is one of the places that I've gone in the past. Photography, painting, those kinds of things. Whenever music was giving me a hassle,
Mm-hmm.
especially when I was younger, I would turn to a canvas.
Huh.
Um, but I love, I think probably my biggest thing that I do for fun is travel.
Oh, yeah.
I love to travel. Had some great opportunities to do work in Europe, but then take weeks off in Europe to just
Huh.
travel. And
Oh, very
also had those opportunities in Central America. And yeah, I love travel.
excellent. Well,
Yeah,
there is just something about travel that expands our perspective and our worldview and opens us up to other people's
yeah,
point of view. Yeah,
yeah,
that's
yeah.
awesome. Well, this next question might be easy for many of the people here, but for those who would know you well, what is something that most people in general don't know about you?
Oh, wow. Okay. Something most people don't know about me. Um, there's some people who might be watching who have seen us over the years, and so there's a fair amount of open bookness to if you've seen us in concert. Um, but uh, you you might not know that my first instrument was violin,
Huh?
but that I was too small. I was a really small kid, and so I was too small for the smallest size violin, the quarter size
No way.
violin. And so my first violin was a Cracker Jacks box with a ruler taped to it that I could then practice the posture of holding the
Sure.
violin. Yeah. Yeah. So, when
Very
I got big enough to open up that Cracker Jacks box when I was like, 18 or whatever, um, then no. Yeah. But yeah, so that was my first instrument. Yeah, I don't know. Well, that's the one I got. That's the one that I
sure.
came up
Nice.
with. Sure.
Perfect. Perfect. You still have that by chance somewhere in a family memory box?
That Cracker Jacks box. No,
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure I ate it. I'm pretty sure that the reward for growing into the smallest size
Yep.
violin was that
Sure.
you got to dismantle your Cracker Jacks box violin.
Oh, that's
So yeah.
hilarious. That's hilarious. Well, shifting gears a little bit to kind of more matters of faith. Um, I'm always curious of this question to ask people: what's your favorite Bible verse and why? And I know some people have more than one, and some people don't have any. But if you
Yeah.
do, what's a favorite Bible verse and how come?
Yeah, it is an interesting question, partially because, well, I'll diminish the question just a little bit by saying, like, the Bible is such a beautiful work as a whole, that picking one little area is kind of, well, fraught with weirdness, I guess.
Sure, sure.
Now, having said that, of course I still have my favorites.
Yeah.
And I love a lot of the poetry that we get in Advent season from Isaiah and Jeremiah and those kinds of places, and the Psalms. The verse that kind of became a catch verse for me when I was in high school, and still is a good catch verse for me, comes out of First John. It's First John 4:10, and it starts off with this declaration that is just really rock solid, and is something that you can hang your hat on, put your foot on. It's this it just says, "This is love," and so the opening of First John 4:10, "This is love, not that we love God, but that God loved us." And so that's been a touchstone verse for me ever since those years when I started in high school, really reading my Bible with some personal drive and personal intensity. Yeah.
It's a great verse. That's a
Yeah.
great verse. I think for myself, I have several that come to mind, but I think it's an interesting question because while we can be so similar in who we are, um, as far as people and Christians, and we're Lutherans together, many of us, and we grew up in
Mm-hmm.
not that
Yeah.
dissimilar of backgrounds. We're also kind of grounded in different ways, and sometimes those Bible verses that appeal to us kind of help define our own personal theology, if you will, or the nuances that
Right.
maybe stick out. So I have a little kind of a leather little journal here, and I put some
Ah.
favorite Bible verses in it, things like that that were meaningful for me or at a time, and I answer that
Yeah.
question often myself with Romans 8:38 and 39. In essence, nothing can separate us from the love of God. And then also Psalm 118:24. This is the day the Lord has made. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. Kind of
Well,
those
you
two
you have
concepts.
good company. You have
Yeah.
good company on Facebook because Christy is staying
Oh,
Romans 8 verse 32.
well, there you go.
Yeah.
Way to go, Christy. Way to go. Yeah, if anybody else has a favorite Bible verse they want to throw in the line too, that would be awesome just to share those. And then we can all go and look them up later to see what people are putting in. And
Right.
if
Yeah.
you have one, let me say this. Let your kids know, let other people know, so that at whenever the day comes that you should happen to hold a funeral, then your family members can know those things that are important to you. Because I can't tell you how many times I've sat around a table with people and we're thinking about planning somebody's funeral service, and their
Yeah.
family members just aren't sure as to what verses were meaningful to their loved ones. So
Yeah.
anyway, that was a complete strange tangent. I did not mean to go down. But bringing that conversation maybe one step further, what are those parts of your faith that guide you, or what are those things that are at the core of Joel's Lutheran theology?
Yeah. Yeah. Thanks for asking. I do think one of the things I love about Lutheran theology is that we are not the instigators of our faith. That it is God's action first, and it goes back to that First John verse that I find so
Sure.
much um, uh, truth in. Because if it relies on me,
Yep.
then um, it, it's a non-starter. It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen if it relies on me. But with God, with the Spirit's nudging, so much is possible, and I've seen that to be true in my life. And so um, that idea that God is always blazing that trail, that the Spirit is blazing that trail ahead of me, and that the Spirit often shows up in unexpected ways through the people that are along the path. Uh, Even, I like to even go back to the story of the Old Testament and Balaam and his donkey,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and so God will show up in even a donkey. God will show up. God will use what God will use, and 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 we shouldn't be. I try and remind myself of that because it
You know,
keeps me humble.
I'm continually amazed in my own life of faith that God somehow works through me in spite of myself.
Yeah,
You know, and I see just how imperfect of a person I am, and yet God can use us because you and I are just as ordinary as anybody else out there,
right.
but yet somehow God works through us, and the truth for everybody out there listening as well, how whether you find yourself special or not, that God can work through you and will use you to change people's lives and to share love and grace and forgiveness with others. Um, and our call is to simply to trust and then to take that step to start that conversation or to write that letter to somebody or in some cases to change vocation and go to seminary. But whatever it is, um, God can just do so many amazing things through us that we don't even think possible. And we just take the next step in faith.
Yeah,
Well, my last question for you today, um, what do you want people to know about you? Now, they will get to know you over the next
yeah,
days, months, and years. But I'm sitting here tonight as people are interacting with you for the first time. What do you want people to know about you?
yeah. Well, I want people. Yeah, okay. Here's a good one.
Yeah.
I really, really, really like coffee, and um, as our kind of world opens up and as the pandemic starts to recede, a walk with a coffee in hand
Sure.
or something along that lines is always a good way for a conversation. And in fact, I think I probably do some of my best thinking when I'm moving. And
Yeah.
so either
I can.
walking
Yeah.
or typing or whatever. So if people want to, if you enjoy that too, that's always a welcome way to connect. And it'll especially be true as the winter turns into spring and more of the vaccine gets out and
Yeah.
we have more of an opportunity. But even just walking outside,
Yeah.
those are those are good ways that we can get to know one another. And I certainly have a desire to get to know folks, and so I'll be taking some time with the church directory and reaching out to you all on different ways. I do have, I should say, that Gigi and the fine folks here in the office did just set me up with an East Side email address, which is
Yeah.
really important because I have received a few emails from some of you, but my laptop, my personal laptop, is going through a slow death,
Uh,
and so I haven't been able to access my emails now in a very easy way for the last 5 or 6 days at least. So Joel at eastsidellc.org, just Joel with the East Side website address. That's a great way to reach me.
Perfect.
And I will get back to all of you who have been emailing via my other email addresses soon. But that's a great way to continue the conversation too.
And I am going to encourage people to take the initiative to reach out to you and say hi and introduce yourself, say your name, repeat your name to him 5 and 6 times over the next year because it just gets to be so many people to meet and hard to connect. And in a congregation like Eastside, where there's several families that are intertwined and connected, to help let him know that
Mm-hmm.
I'm so and so, and this is my sister or my mother or what have you,
Yeah.
and then also to take him out for coffee when we're allowed to do that and things. Because I know there is no better way than when someone can reach out and say, I would love to sit down and have a cup of coffee with you or have you over for a meal, those kinds of things. And they're so important when somebody is starting as a pastor in a congregation. So please don't be intimidated to reach out, say hi, and invite him to something. Not that I'm filling your whole social calendar, Joel, but sometimes I think people just need the freedom to be able to do that. So I encourage everyone to do so. And I see Judy is saying that you are welcome at St. Arbuck's on Tuesday mornings, where they have lots of coffee.
Yeah, good. And that will happen. I did get an invite. I have an invitation letter to St. Arbuck's right
Oh,
here.
super, super.
Yeah, from Marlon and Colleen. And I did text Marlon this morning saying thank you, and that will happen soon and very soon. Didn't happen this morning, but will happen in upcoming Tuesdays. So thank
Nice.
you. Yes.
And I encourage people to also continue to write hi and welcome in the comments as you watch this video, whether it's live tonight or sometime later. It's also just another way to connect and say, hey, we're out there. And then my last thing, my last plea for anybody watching this tonight would be to please pray for Joel as he starts as pastor here, and his wife, Amy, as well. But pray for them as they transition into not only a new call and a new vocation, but even just a new residence, a new city. Everything is new. There's so much newness. So may God grant you peace and strength as you start in this place.
Thank
And
you.
to everybody else out there, also be reminded and look for ways as we come upon Epiphany here on Wednesday and then in the days that follow. How is God being made known to you in your life, and how is God working through you then to share that and use those gifts with other people? So why don't we do as we do on Tuesday nights, and that is always to bring our time to a close with Luther's evening prayer. So we will take a breath and get ready, hopefully, for a peaceful night, because as you're aware, Joel, Luther said, here is this prayer, and then when you're done, go to bed quickly and peacefully, and go to sleep confident that God is with you and that you are held tightly in his love. So let us pray. I give thanks to you, Heavenly Father, through Jesus Christ, your dear Son, that you have graciously protected me today. And I ask you to forgive me all my sins where I have done wrong, and graciously protect me tonight. Into your hands I commend myself, my body, my soul, and all that is mine. Let your holy angel be with me, so that the wicked foe may have no power over me. Amen. Well, again, Joel, welcome to Eastside Lutheran. We are thrilled to have you with us. And God's peace this night to everybody watching. May God work through each of you in powerful ways. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.